Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is our public hearing for November 25th. My name is Kevin Murdoch, and I will be chairing tonight's first public hearing, pertaining to proposed bylaws 4620.002, 2019. I'd like to start off by acknowledging that we are holding this meeting on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish peoples, specifically the Lekwungen-speaking people known today as the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations, and their historic connections to these lands continue to this day. Before we begin, please be advised that this public hearing is being live webcast and the recording will be archived on the district's website for future viewing. Personal information, including your image and personal opinions, may be collected and disclosed as part of council proceedings on the video. When presenting to council, if you are acting as a representative for a resident of Oak Bay or speaking of another party, please ensure you are not disclosing any personal information about that person for which you do not have the consent to do so. Next, I'd like to outline the protocols for tonight's public hearing, and these are standard for all of our public hearings. Everyone wishing to speak will be given an opportunity to be heard. I ask that speakers limit their initial comments to a maximum of 5 minutes so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. And once everyone has had a chance to speak, those wishing to speak again may do so if they have new points to present. Please keep comments respectful of council, of staff, and of other members of the public. All comments are to be directed to Mayor and Council and must relate to the proposed bylaw. The purpose of the public hearing is to give council an opportunity to listen to the views expressed by the public. This public hearing is not an opportunity for the public to learn details about the application, as this opportunity has occurred through previous meetings and presentations and within the staff reports provided to date. For the information of those present tonight, a public hearing binder that contains all the written submissions is available for review if anyone wishes to comment on those submissions. As chair, I will reserve the right to conclude any presentation made by any member of the public, council or staff that does not relate to the proposed bylaw, is disrespectful towards any other person, or is repetitive of views that the individual speaker has already made known to council. Finally, council members are here to listen to the public's opinion with an open mind. No one has prejudged the outcome of this application or this process. I just want to clarify for people here the order of business, as it is for all public hearings. The order of business for this public hearing follows a formal 7-step process as follows. Planning staff will introduce the proposed bylaw. Council will formally receive written submissions provided prior to the public hearing. Late submissions will be read aloud and formally received. The applicant of any, in this case us, will present the proposal if they wish. Council will ask clarifying questions of the applicant or staff. Members of the public will be invited to provide comment on the bylaw. And finally, the public hearing is then recessed or closed as determined by the council motion. And with that, we start our meeting more officially. So I just invite, Councillor Zelka, please come on in. We've just started the public hearing process. If I could get staff to introduce bylaw 4620.002, 2019. Ms. Jensen.
Thank you. As you mentioned, the item on this evening's agenda is bylaw 4620.002, which is a bylaw to amend the regional context statement contained within the official community plan. As Council may recall, the Capital Regional District adopted a new regional growth strategy in 2018. This new strategy replaces the previous one adopted in 2003. Its intent is to guide decisions on growth, change, and development within the regional district. Provincial legislation through the Local Government Act also requires that a community's official community plan include a regional context statement to show how the official community plan is consistent with the regional growth strategy. A context statement was included in the community plan when it was adopted in 2014, but now needs to be updated to reflect the new regional growth strategy. The strategy itself is similar in terms of its key objectives, including managing growth, environment and infrastructure, housing and community, transportation, and economic development. 2 additional objectives are also included to address food systems and climate action. The proposed regional context statement for the district also addresses these 2 objectives, pointing to policy that is already set out in the community plan for these topic areas. So just to clarify, this proposed amendment is specific to the regional context statement only. It is not proposing any changes to OCP policy. Rather, it points to the overall policies contained within the community plan and then specifically references some of those policies as examples for how the community plan is complying with the RGS and achieving goals within those areas. The amended regional context statement was reviewed by CRD staff in anticipation of moving the statement forward to the regional board for their review. That statement was given first and second readings by this council in July and then forward to the Capital Regional District. They accepted the statement in October. Following that acceptance, the district must hold a public hearing prior to considering third reading and adoption of the revised contact statement, which is on the council agenda for later this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. We need now a motion to receive written submissions that are received and distributed prior to the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Has a corporate officer received any additional submissions after 3 p.m. today?
Your Worship, there was none.
Thank you. So we need no motion there. Is there, at this point, we have no applicant, so for those curious, we've standardized our public hearing process to make sure that exactly the same process is followed for all applications, large or small, to make sure that there's an equal opportunity through all of them. So I'm following this process to ensure that we're not missing any steps here. So at this point, does council have any clarifying questions of our staff? I'm seeing none. All right, then I will move on. At this point, anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this item is welcome to come forward and address yourself at the microphone. Again, your name and comments will be recorded through the live stream and for the permanent record. And if you come forward, just please write your name and municipality of residence on the speaker's list. So I can just ask for a process. If you can just state your name clearly, your municipality of residence. If you can, I state whether you are in favor or opposed to the proposed bylaw changes, and then provide your comments. Welcome, sir.
B89.
Can I just we can turn on your mic. There we go. Your microphone is now on. Welcome, sir.
Start again. B89 444 440 Telfer GR Commander CD RCNR. I state that because due to my military service, I've ended up deaf, and under one of the sections in the charter, I'm entitled to the services of an interpreter at this time, since this is an official meeting. I will waive at this time my right to an interpreter.
Thank you.
I did take the time to download both the Old Bay official plan and that of the CRD. I see no reason to make any objection to passing this bylaw. However, since in climate change and energy, we are talking here in the Old Bay plan of reducing greenhouse gases. We know on Saturday we'll have a combination of noise pollution as well as air pollution from a convoy of trucks that will be moving through the city. We are either serious in greenhouse gas reduction or we are not. I feel that this parade should be cancelled in future. There's also another one coming up from the Royal Victoria Yacht Club, who will be doing a sail pass. They will not be sailing insofar as they will be using wind. They will not, again, they will be using fuel. My own interest in air pollution, I hold 3 patents for wood burning in open fireplaces. And with all the accent now on this climate crisis that we have, the future of wood burning in open fireplaces is here to stay. I did notice in the additional thing that there's a community planning outfit here. Sorry. Sorry about this. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. There is a committee here that would probably be better placed to address my concerns, because really, this meeting tonight is about approving the change to the bylaw, to which I agree. Therefore, I'll terminate my discussion for now.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Telford.
you all.
And if you're referring to the Community Climate Change Action Working
That's-
Group,
yes.
They are meeting and their agendas are published on the website if you want to have a look.
Okay. I
And
will do.
public are welcome to address
I
that
will
body.
do.
Okay, thank
My
you.
health is improving a bit.
Great. Thank you very much for coming. I'll invite the next speaker to come forward.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Bowker, and I live next to Quimper Playground. I submitted a 4-page written submission, which is information dense and worth saving as a reference document. Have you all had a chance to read it and digest it?
We have Mr. Yes.
Thank you. Would any of you like a few moments to skim it to refresh your memory?
Mr. Bowker, we have all read the submission in detail. Thank you.
Waving to the camera here. I'm a really bad speaker, so I suggest the people at home open the agenda, open the correspondence link, and read my submission. Before I go any further, I'd like to be out of order. My 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and 2-year-old granddaughters had a wonderful time at last night's light up. Okay. My submission is in 3 parts. My recommendation is 2 short paragraphs, and I will read that aloud. The background information which supports my recommendation is 1.5 pages, but is all legal, ethical, and logical points which are best read, not spoken. The web links and quotes which support the background take 2 more pages. The links and quotes are from provincial law, provincial policies, Union of BC municipal policies, and from the Mayor's Task Force on Public Engagement, which Councillor Ney chaired. So here's my recommendation. I respectfully request that this amendment to the OCP and any future OCP amendments which also relate to housing policies be postponed until the information being collected to support the provincially legislated housing needs report is available to the public. Until such critical and up-to-date statistics, data, trends are made public, neither officials nor the public will have the facts they need to evaluate proposed changes to the OCP. Going forward with OCP amendments regarding housing would be illogical, error-prone, and wasteful due to the cart before the horse methodology. Moreover, it would be a breach of the spirit of the April 16, 2019 changes to the Local Government Act, which regulates housing needs reports and OCPs, and a breach of the terms of the grant that Oak Bay has received to create these reports. Rather than read the background section, I now wish to speak to councillors as politicians. For 2 elections, most candidates have been promising Oak Bay a housing strategy. The public believe them, but is still waiting. Oak Bayers are upset with the April changes to the Local Government Act because the province is forcing local governments to do housing needs studies and reports rather than housing strategies. This is a popular misconception. Nothing could be further from the truth, but I understand why the misconception. All of the debate, publicity, websites, policies, guidelines, documentation, and most of the new legal wording in the LGA are about housing needs reports. What the public have missed is the handful of critical sub-subsection changes in the OCP division of the LGA, some of which I quote in my submission. Those handful of changes will cause the most significant expansion in the scope of the OCP in decades. In future, every time an OCP has an amendment related to housing, housing policies must be added, enlarged, improved, updated, and moreover, be based on facts, trends, and realistic projections. Taken together, such policies will evolve into a housing strategy embedded within the OCP. So you see, if this council wants to give Oak Bay a housing strategy, all they need do is encourage the planning office to embrace the spirit of the new rules about OCPs. Let me repeat that. If this council wants to give Oak Bay a housing strategy, all they need do is encourage the planning office to embrace the spirit of the new rules about OCPs. Our housing strategy will not be a separate entity, and it may not be named such, but it will evolve and it will exist. The public needs to be aware that the housing needs reports are just a new tool which feeds information to the new rules regarding OCPs, rules which will result in the integration of housing strategies into every local government OCP. The same is true at the regional district level. Planning methods must also evolve. The legislation was enacted in April, so by now local planning offices across the province have given their councils thorough briefings regarding the deep and wide implications of these new OCP rules and will have changed their project schedules accordingly. For instance, Sydney has already published their housing needs report. They concentrated on getting their report published as soon as possible so they could unfreeze their other OCP projects. There is another facet important to councillors as politicians. None of you should thank me for my submission, because I have just put council in a tough spot by publicly removing their deniability. Councillors can no longer claim that they did not know that all housing-related amendments to the OCP must legally and contractually wait until a housing needs report or the underlying information is made public. What this means is if council now votes to enact this bylaw to amend the OCP, then they transfer the culpability from the planning staff to themselves. Knowingly breaking a provincial law tends to be a career-limiting move by a local politician. So please study my background section before you vote. Do any of you have any questions?
We're just here to listen to your submissions, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowker. Anybody else wish to come forward to address council? I'll ask again for a second time. Does anyone wish to come forward?
Mayor and Council, I won't repeat anything that the previous speakers
Sorry,
said.
sir. Can you just state
I'm
your
just going
name?
to make a couple of points.
Can you just state your name and
Oh,
your
sorry,
municipality of reference?
Anthony Mayer, South Oak Bay.
Thank you.
So point number one, the BC provisional government memorandum that states required consideration of housing needs. A local government is required to consider its most recent housing needs report and the housing information on which it is based when amending an official community plan in relation to housing statements, map designations, or policies. As the recent published corporate plan indicates, the housing needs study is scheduled to be completed in a few weeks. So it would seem to be prudent to wait to consider it before pressing ahead with this bylaw Oak Bay official community plan amendment, bylaw 4620.002-219. That's point number one. Point number two, Regional Contact Statement Framework 218. Page 3 states, A recent court ruling, Greater Vancouver Regional District versus Langley Township, made it clear that for a regional growth strategy to be implemented through the context statement must be specific. To have legal significance, OCP provisions that are an integral part to the regional growth strategy implementation must be communicated in sufficient detail in the context statement. The reference cannot be indirect and it cannot be high level. The regional context statement will describe in a succinct and clear manner the specific OCP content that relates to the regional growth strategy. As noted, for a context statement to have legal significance, simply referencing OCP section numbers is not sufficient to identify the relationship between the OCP and regional growth strategy. With reference to the existing regional growth strategy, Oak Bay's context statement, page 1 reads, managing and balancing growth. Oak Bay is already compact. The OCP plans for it to become more compact with an increase of up to 900 people over the next 10 years. The OCP, page 11 provides specific growth numbers and states an OCP percent growth rate, annual growth rate, would mean about 900 new residents or 36 new housing units. The new regional growth strategy context statement then is less specific than the existing regional growth strategy context statement, as it merely references OCP section numbers. It also references the district's annual population growth as 0.5%. This has been referenced by some council members and the regional infill strategy consultant as just a projection. The 2018 regional growth strategy states, targets are intended to be achieved at a regional level given the diversity of geographic and demographic conditions that exist among member municipalities. It is not intended that progress towards all targets would be equal in each municipality. That's it. I have a copy of this because I mentioned this a couple of years ago. I've been quoted out of context, and a number of residents have said that, one as recently as a couple of council meetings ago. So I would like this to give this to whoever's taking minutes so that they don't get it wrong.
You can hand it back to staff. Thank you, Mr. Mears. I believe you may have taken the sign-in sheet there with you. Does anyone else wish to come forward to address council on this item? I'll ask for a second time again. Anybody wish to come forward to address council? And for a third time, anyone wish to, third and final time, if anybody wishes to come to address council, this is your chance. All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to this table. We just need a motion to, yes? Councillor Zelka?
Thank you very much, Chair. Just wanted to ask, will council have a chance to ask staff any more questions with respect to this process, either at this time or at the council meeting following?
At the council meeting following, we have a chance to ask questions at that point. Thank you. With that, can I need a motion to adjourn the public
Move
hearing?
adjournment. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you very much. That concludes the public hearing for tonight. We will be reconvening as council at 7 p.m., at which point this item will be up for discussion, and we expect to amend the agenda to move it fairly close to the beginning of the agenda package. With that, we will see you all if you want to stick around until 7 o'clock. Thank you.